Coming up on Esoteric Atlanta.
Viri that later altered DNA. What if that is what's meant here? What if the transporters are bringing or have already brought Viri, and that will infect the population with DNA-altering pathogens, resulting in more violent and aggressive individuals?
But before we go any further, just a brief shout out and thank you to all of our patrons and our producers here on Esoteric Atlanta. This is truly a grassroots effort. So without your support, this channel would not be possible. If you would like to help support our work here on Esoteric Atlanta, there is a link to our Patreon page down in the description box below.
Hello, everybody. I was about to open this video with singing the song Popular from Wicked. You'll see why in a minute. But then I thought, don't want to get a copyright strike. So here we are. Welcome back to Esoteric Atlanta. Of course, my name is Bryce, and I am so happy to have you guys here today. I am doing this because of you, and because of me, because I find this stuff so unbelievably fascinating. And I am just so grateful that you guys find it fascinating too. And so we're going to go through this together because the last video I did on this was such a success and you guys really dug it. And so as promised, my last video with Catherine Edwards, I've got all sorts of transcripts here from the Cassiopaean forum, the Cassiopaean experiment, channeled by none other than my boyfriend's cousin, Laura Knight. And I was like, oh my God, when he handed me all of these transcripts, I was so overwhelmed. I was like, well, where do I even start? This is 31 years worth of channeling. And so where is the best place to start? The beginning. So I skimmed through, especially in 1994 and onward, there are so many channelings that she did. She was like on fire in the 90s, and they don't channel as much anymore, which I don't blame them because channeling absolutely does drain you. And I think what was important really is in the beginning stages, because we're kind of here. We're kind of at the place that they were predicting back in the 90s. And so what I'm going to do, I have the transcript here that I thought was super interesting. So we're not going to go through every single transcript. Like that would be insanity to go through every single transcript because literally, again, they're 31 years worth of transcripts. And so I'm skimming through. I'm definitely going to suggest that you also look through these transcripts, these forums for yourself. As always, the forum will be tagged down in the description box below. Everything in here is also on the website. However, the only difference is in here, she has little notes about what was going on, especially in the beginning in the early 90s when they started, which is really helpful. For those who are not familiar with the Cassiopaeans, this is the first book, Riding the Wave. I would absolutely suggest that you order her books and read her books on who the Cassiopaeans are, how they were discovered, how it relates to the Law of One, all that kind of stuff. So without further ado, I'm going to be looking from the book, but I'm also going to pull up the transcript from the website so you guys can see. And then I'm also going to be referring here because she's got, as I said, she's got some asterisks and some stuff that I can like pull more information from. I will say though, I had to stop and like go ask my boyfriend some stuff because there's some like petty, juicy gossip in some of these readings between the people who were channeling, which is hysterical. So I went to go ask like, who is this guy? Who is this girl? And my boyfriend was like, oh, they used to work together. There was some ego that got involved, you know, same old story. So anyway, let me read you before we get into it. I'm going to actually read from the introduction that Laura gives from November 2nd, 1994. And as you can see, I skipped over a lot of stuff. I did skim this stuff. We might go back and cover some of the earlier stuff. But in the beginning, you can definitely see in the beginning of the transcripts that Laura and her group were a little shaky, which of course they would be, right? Like practice makes perfect. Of course you're going to be shaky in the beginning of anything. And you can also see what I talked about in our last episode, which I will tag that down below. You can also see where her religious indoctrination is still kind of there. And my boyfriend said it's even more fabulous as you keep going, because you really see her starting to like wake up as time goes on. So yeah, so I skipped through a lot of stuff. A lot of the stuff in the beginning really focuses on like the Bible. They clarify that no, the person we know as Jesus or Yahshua was never crucified. Like, that never happened. You know, they clarify a lot of the miracles that are attested to him in the Bible never happened. That's all stories, never happened. You know, so it's very, very interesting. They talk about how basically, and I think we might get a little bit into it on this one. They talk about the Nephilim in this one, and like crop circles and stuff. But they also talked about how in earlier readings that Yahshua's dad, it was like a one-night stand, basically. But nonetheless, you guys can read all that for yourself. Let me look here. Yeah, we're going to talk about alien abductions, Nephilim, the crystal skulls of the Mayas, which we're going to pull up and look at some of this stuff too. Because remember, this is from 1994. So please remember this as we're going through this, that this is from November 2nd of 1994. I was 11 years old. I was in the 5th grade when this was being channeled. So I'd love, if you want to give how old you were in 1994, I'd love that. But this is a very long time ago. So let me read you the introduction first. Laura writes, this is one of the more interesting sessions since the main topic was the Nephilim. The secondary topic was crop circles. As usually happened, the discussion of one topic brought in answers that begged for following, which we often did. That's why it seems we had a hard time staying on topic. The session begins with the questions about Frank's state the night before. I was regularly subjected to his hour-long rants about how hard his life was and how no one appreciated him or treated him with respect. I've written about this at some length in the Wave series of the books, which is interesting. What is interesting in this session is that the C's mention that there was a sort of conflict between good and evil within Frank himself, and it was uncertain which side would win. Later developments chronicled in the books mentioned answers this question. VG, as was usual, mainly asked questions about things that concerned her personally. So Frank, that's the person I went and I was like, who's Frank, to my boyfriend? And he was like, Frank was the guy that was originally doing this stuff with Laura. So like her partner in crime and this stuff. And I guess like he had a very hard life. And his frustrations about that, a lot of negative greetings, like really put a lot of strain on their relationship, their partnership. And apparently, like, according allegedly to what my boyfriend believed happened, is that his ego got a little too big. Like, he felt like she was only able to do this because of him. Just drama. So that's who Frank is. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started. Let me, okay. Just make sure I've got everything marked here. So November 2nd, 1994, it was uploaded on July 8th, 2012. So Frank, Laura, and V. Here it's written as VG. So VG in the book. Laura. Question. Laura. Hello. Answer. Hello. Laura. What is your name, please? Fori. Why was Frank in such a state last night? Because his life is difficult. What is making his life difficult? Destiny. Is his destiny for his entire life to be difficult? Answer, open. Laura, is that choice up to him? Answer, no. Well, then, why is it open? Answer, will dark or light forces win? Laura, win what? Answer, battle. Laura, battle where? Answer, all. Well, I thought you said that the forces of light were definitely going to win. Is that not correct? Answer, too simplified. Question, Laura, is there anything Frank can do in this battle to assist getting over his problem? Answer, fight. Laura, why does V's friend, T, snipe at her the way that she does? Answer is jealousy. Question, Laura, so should she keep all this information to herself? Answer, Up to her, all will be okay. We feel important matters need discussion from here forward, please. All right, so there's an asterisk here. I'm going to go ahead. She says in the asterisk here, this is the first occasion out of many where the Cassiopaeans explicitly urge to not focus too much on personal questions, but to address questions of a universal nature. The reader will discover more of such requests in later sessions. So they're basically like, we don't need to get involved. Like sometimes in these forums, they do talk about personal stuff with the readers, but I've learned that when they do talk about personal stuff with the readers, it's stuff that all of us might experience, and so it's helpful in that situation. But what they're saying here is like this pettiness between you guys is not helping the collective, like why we're here. Now, again, if I did not mention this in the beginning, for those who might be new here, maybe you just clicked on this channel. So who are the Cassiopaeans? They're a star constellation. They've been channeled for 31 years, and they have yet to be wrong. And they definitely, in fact, a lot of stuff that they've kind of hinted at has come to pass. But they don't sometimes give full-on answers because they don't want to interfere with our free will. And so back in 1994, I mean, that's how long some people have been awake, right? Is like they were talking about us transitioning to fourth density positive from third density back in 1994. So think about that. All these people who have been aware of the establishment, the Illuma Shmati, whatever you want to call them, they've been aware of this group for that long. They've been aware of the lies and deceit in our world, which we're going to talk about a little bit in this reading, for that long. Some of us have only been on this journey for 5 years, and it's exhausting. So I just, I wanted to again say that too. Now, of course, with that being said, take everything with a grain of salt. Please do your own research. I'm a student of this just as you are. So we're just looking at this together, all of us. So anyway, so basically, they just told them that we don't want to be here for personal matters. We want to talk about things that affect the collective whole. All right, Laura, could you define important matters for us? Answer, of importance to all. Laura, okay, who or what group is responsible for crop circles? Answer, us, you bet. Laura, what is the purpose of the crop circles? Messages to the world, all. Laura, do these crop circles mean an idea, an energy, a concept? How do they transit messages? Translate, it can be done. Question, Laura, this one here, what does it mean? Okay, so let me go here. So there, she actually has in here the actual drawings of the crop circles that she is referring to. Where are they? All right, so this is the first crop circle. When she says this one here, what does it mean? That one right here, the first one. Kind of looks like a human, doesn't it? Answer, you. Laura, do you mean the human race? Answer, yes, symbol for human race. Laura, what does this one mean? The next one would be this one right here. Answer, planet. Laura, what is the meaning of the circle my husband found in our driveway? Which is this one. Answer, Mars. Laura, what does this message convey? Astrological. Question, Laura, did it convey any messages other than astrological? Answer, what does Mars represent? Laura, war, anger, energy, struggle, assertiveness, sex, life. Answer, first 4. Laura, now what does this crop circle represent? And she's basically saying that she's just holding up a bunch of these crop circles. You guys know what crop circles look like. So we'll go through this. Atomic structure. This squiggly one, what does it mean? Make sure I'm following along here. Struggle, Laura, in what way? Answer, learning from change and adversary. Question, Laura, well, that is all the pictures I have. Answer, need more soon. Question, Laura, in the library, maybe. This is of the utmost importance. Laura, is this going to help with the forum? Yes. Laura, who caved the stone heads on Easter Island? Answer, Lemurian descendants. Question, Laura, the natives say that the stones walked into position. Is this true? Answer, no. Question, Laura, well, how? Answer, tonal vibration. Question, Laura, what did these stones represent? Nephilim. Is this what the Nephilim look like? Answer, close. What does that mean? Question, Laura, does that mean that the Nephilim were present in Lemuria? Answer, close. Laura, where was Lemuria located? Answer, Pacific off South America. Question, Laura, so when the Easter Island natives talk about their ancestors, they were talking about people who came from the direction of South America. Answer, no. Right near all around, Easter Island is remnant of Lemuria. Question, Laura, what happened to Lemuria? Answer, submerged close to the time you refer to as the fall of Eden, approximately. And we have a footnote here. The fall has already been dated to 309,882 years ago. And that was in a prior reading that I skimmed over. So 309,882 years ago is when they say the fall of Eden happened. So Lemuria submerged itself at the fall of Eden is what the Cassiopaeans are saying. Question, Laura, well, if the Nephilim were brought here 9 to 12,000 years ago, answer, last visit, have been here 5 times, will return. Now, this also has a footnote for the will return, okay? So that last visit have been here 5 times, will return. So here's the footnote that I have. This obviously didn't answer my implied question about how the Nephilim could have been known from Lemuria when it had sunk so very, very long ago. Well, obviously, I was asking the initial question with the assumption that the Easter Island people were survivors of Lemuria. And when I asked if the Nephilims had been present in Lemuria, the seas only said close. The seas are the Cassiopaeans. That's what she calls the Cassiopaeans, the seas. The seas then pointed out the areas around Easter Island were areas of survival of the Lemurians, and the Easter Island itself was a remnant of the land area. So I guess it is like the story about Atlantis, where survivors were scattered and tried to reconstitute their civilization for some time following a major destruction, and there could be survivals of tales or other elements handed down for thousands of years. But still, it seems like 310,000 years is a very long time. At a later session, the Cassiopaeans say Atlantis and Lemurian were not the oldest civilizations on Earth, and that others far older have come and gone. We know that from Mu, from Hillis's deep dive into Mu. Still, in other sessions, they say that the Oriental peoples are survivors of the Lemurians' genetic stock. Of course, that is interesting when one reads a book I've mentioned previously in my notes, The Gods of the Cataclysm, which is loaded with images showing the connection between South America and the Orient. Wikipedia says this about the island. Estimated dates of the initial settlement of Easter Island have ranged from 300 to 1200 CE, approximately coinciding with the arrival of the first settlers in Hawaii. Radiocarbon dating have changed almost all of the previously posted earlier settlement dates in Polynesia. Rapa Nui has more recently been considered to have been settled in the narrow range of 700 to 1100 CE. An ongoing study by archaeologists Terry Hunt and Carl Lipo suggests a still later date. So again, she's saying that, to sum that up, basically like everything we have about our ancient, we know this. Everything we have about our ancient history as humanity, it's full of speculation. Graham Hancock has a whole series on this. Like, we don't really know. And that's what she's saying. Like, the scientists keep changing things because we we have a theory, and then all of a sudden we have all this evidence suggests the original theory of thought is wrong. And of course, I said this in the last episode we did over the Cassiopaeans. For us, sitting in 2025, oftentimes I think in the mainstream narrative, we're taught that we are the most advanced that Earthlings have ever been. Since the beginning of Earth, we're the most advanced. Well, we know that's not true. The mainstream narrative still claims that's true, but we know, those of us who have done a lot of research and have common sense, looking at these old texts and these ancient writings, we know that we're not the most advanced civilization that's ever lived on this earth. Like, we know that. It's stupid to think we are. We're cavemen compared to like the Emerald, I was about to say the Emerald Tablets, which I'm thinking about, but like Atlantis, Lemuria, we're cavemen compared to what they had. Okay, so that's what she's basically saying. So what they're saying here kind of confirms that we're just speculating. Like, we have no idea what our actual history is. So she goes on to say, it is assumed that the statues were erected by these settlers. I suspect that this is not proven at all, that when the settlers arrived, they found the statues already there. According to National Geographic, most scholars suspect that the Moai were created to honor the ancestors, chiefs, and other important personages. However, no written or literal oral history exists on the island, so it's impossible to be certain. So yeah, so we all know Easter Island, that they basically say, oh, the inhabitants must have built this in order to honor their chiefs or whatever, but they're saying, no, these were actual Nephilim. This is what Nephilim this is what they were trying to talk about, the Nephilim. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. So she goes on to say, the Nephilim are going to return. Where do the Nephilim currently live? Answer, Orion. Question, Laura. They live in the constellation Orion. Where is their planet? Answer, don't have one in transit. Question, Laura. The whole dadgum bunch is in transit? Answer, 3 vehicles. Question, Laura. How many Nephilim does each vehicle hold? Answer, about 12 million. That's a lot of giants. Question, Laura. Are they coming to help us? Answer, no. Wave, comet, cluster, all using same energy. Question, Laura. Using same energy to what? So we do have a note here on this answer that a little asterisk here. No, wave, comet, cluster, all. I'm laughing, you guys. It's dinner time for my dog right now. So if you hear like howling in the background, we have our dog on a raw food diet. And he sings for his food while my boyfriend makes his food. He sits on his bed and like howls for it. He gets so frantic. So if you hear howling in the background, that's just Robbie singing. He's going to get his food. So, all right. So let's go back to this asterisk here under no, wave, comet, cluster, all using same energy. So this asterisk says, now notice that the Cassiopaeans said the Nephilim have no planet of their own, and they talk about them arriving in 3 vehicles, and that the wave, the comet cluster, and these vehicles are all using the same energy. In the session of the 23rd of October, the Cassiopaeans said the Nephilims were enforcers, or the slaves of Orion. And then you will see in the very next session, dated the 4th of November, 1994, that the seas say that the Nephilim use stun to do their enforcing. Consider the police state that has been imposed on our planet since, now again, she's writing these asterisks after 1994. Okay, so this board was channeled in 1994, but she's writing this afterwards, like a decade later. She's putting this all together and publishing it. So she's talking about the police state that had been imposed on our planet since, we'll say, the occurrences that happened in September of 2001. And that the reinforcers of this state are the police, who are notoriously using stun. One gets the feeling that again was symbolism or a metaphor for the events that would transpire on our planet. What if the coming Nephilim are actually genetically modified humans? We talked about this. What if the vehicles they were traveling on or some kind of energy were soul transporters rather than transporting actual physical 14 tall dudes? In other words, what if in essence the Nephilims are already here? Now, I won't discuss the possibility that actual craft could bring them, but I'm just opening the door to a different way of understanding how things transpire between density levels. As I have discussed in comments in the Horns of Moses, we've covered the Horns of Moses. Nearly all the ancient stories of comet cataclysms include tales of giants, dwarfs, cannibals, etc. I also noted in that volume how comets may have been able to modify DNA either by some direct EM effect or by bringing viri that later alter DNA. What if that is what's meant here? What if the transporters are bringing or have already brought viri, and that will infect the population with DNA altering pathogens, resulting in more violent and aggressive individuals? Look at the increase in zombie type attacks. Look at the increase in mob type violence. Look at the increase in psychopathy and overt psychopathic behavior in the top levels of government. Even individuals who previously managed to come across as relatively normal humans seem to have gone over the edge or come out of the closet somehow in the manifestation and demonstration of their evilness. Dick Cheney, Tony Blair, George Bush, Condoleezza Rice, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, and so on the list goes. At this present moment, the only group that seems to be behaving in some sort of way, and it could be a mass, this is funny, are the Russians under the leadership of Vladimir Putin. This is hysterical because this was published probably in the 2000s, I would have guessed, mid-2000s. I'll have to look to be exact, like 10 years after this. So, and this brings a really interesting concept. You know, we see so many people talk about the Nephilim, like are Rh negatives like myself Nephilim, are, you know, the actual individual through genetics Nephilim. And she's saying, what if the possibility of Nephilim returning is through altering DNA of humans? So now we have in 2025, we're seeing the effects of these things. So what if that's it? What if by getting one of these, you're allowing your DNA to be altered to make you a more of an aggressive person? What if that's what the Nephilim is? You know, and I will say this again, you can't judge somebody, whether being good or bad, by their race, by their eye color, by their hair color, by their blood type, by their gender, by their country. And even the C's talk about, the Cassiopaeans talk about that, like not all Orions are bad, not all lizards are bad. It's human choice. Or it's not all human, but conscious choice of a human or of a being. Yeah? Do you guys know what I'm talking about? But what if, when we look at, what if the Illumashmati, the establishment has us so convinced through biblical stories that the Nephilim are a group of people that are of a certain genetic persuasion by birth. So like if you're super tall, like your blood type, okay, so like I'm O negative, like what if they've created this diversiveness within our own community of humans to be bigoted towards, that's what it is, right? Towards a particular blood type or a particular race. When in the meantime, what's really happening, the Nephilim emerging on Earth is literally through these. And it's affecting all blood types, whoever chooses to get one. I don't know. It's just a hypothesis. It's just speculation. I think that's what Laura's saying here too. But the point is that when we're looking at densities merging or densities coming in and out of different emergences, this riding a wave of comets, we have to think outside of the box of what we're used to in third density. We have to think outside of the box, and we have to take everything with a grain of salt. We can't even hold our own opinions as being like the word of God, the truth. We always have to have discernment. So I think that's really, really important to talk about.
Hello, you guys. Editing Bryce here. I'm just re-listening to this. And this is the thing about the Cassiopaean readings is like you can do a reading and it can haunt you for a few days and you can really think about it and ponder what the Cassiopaean said. And all of a sudden other possibilities start to open up to you. And I do absolutely agree with Laura's hypothesis, her speculation that the return of the Nephilim is not actually like the fact that I think we think that there's just going to be this uprising of giants, or that like a spaceship's going to land and the Nephilim are going to be here. But what the seas are saying is that it's not it's not like that, because the Nephilim don't actually have a home planet, so they're just kind of floating around. I kind of see that as their consciousness just kind of floating around. And I was thinking about it because she said, every time in our historical references through any type of religious scripture in all cultures, anytime there's like a cataclysmic event, we see the Nephilim. And that's not just in the Bible, it's in a bunch of other scriptures as well of other religions. And what are these cataclysmic events? Well, they can be comets hitting the earth, a pole shift. It's any time we have a timeline shift, like a changing of densities. And of course there has to be friction, there has to be a change, right? It's like giving birth. So we always see these Nephilim appear, and they're agents for the most part. Again, each individual consciousness has its own free will choice, but they're pretty much agents for the darkness. Yeah, like the Gestapo, I think she refers to them as the Gestapo either now or later on in the reading. So when I was thinking about the biblical, if her hypothesis is that the Nephilim are going to reemerge as we're transferring into fourth density in this cataclysmic event, but they're not going to emerge in the way that we think they are, they're going to transfer into our consciousness through different means, then it probably is through DNA manipulation. And I wouldn't freak out too much, like if you've had the Jappity Doodah. I think too there's a lot of conscious choice in that as well, like allowing yourself to be taken over. That's why I was telling my boyfriend, like, that's why the practice of yoga is so unbelievably important, because in the practice of yoga we're taught to understand that our thoughts are not us, like that's not who we really are, our thoughts, and so we're able to discern better. But some people don't know that. They think their thoughts are real, and so they might be easier to manipulate in their DNA structure if they're already prone to not understanding that their thoughts aren't actually who they really are, if that makes sense. Now, I was thinking back to the Bible, like, so if she's speculating that the return of the Nephilim are coming from DNA manipulation now, think about back in biblical times, it was also DNA manipulation through insemination. So it was insemination through birth, whereas this is insemination through the injection of certain material. I'm trying to be careful what I say about for YouTube. So I thought that was kind of interesting and definitely challenges our perspective on who the Nephilim are, and that just because someone's a giant doesn't mean they're a Nephilim, right? Like, we have to be very careful about that. That's one thing that really drives me crazy about some of this stuff, is people get very much caught in black and white thinking, and it's the C's are kind of like, no, this isn't really black and white thinking. There's loopholes here and there's some gray here. You have to think about consciousness, because the soul is what matters, right? It's not the body that is going to dictate the soul, but the soul is rather dictating the body. That's what we talk about with exercise too in spirituality. It's the soul that's dictating the body, not the other way around. And I think it's interesting with the Easter Island, with these statues, that these were people trying to warn us, almost like they were trying to, by memory and from what they had heard, create statues of Nephilim, because they were giants back then. It doesn't mean they're necessarily going to be giants now, or going to be giants. They've been here, as the seas have said, they've been here multiple times. Anytime there's a cataclysm or a shift in consciousness, the Nephilim show up. But how interesting is it now? I mean, we're seeing this, and again, she wrote this. She channeled this back in 1994, but wrote the book and added the asterisks, the side notes, probably the late 2000s. But now really look at how many people are so diehard for the establishment. They're willing to compromise their morals. They're willing to compromise their common sense to protect the establishment. We see that in the truther world too. How many truthers are actually protecting the establishment with their willingness to boldly defend religion without having any concrete evidence that the religion that they're defending is even real? So we're seeing that divide. And I think what we've thought, because the Cassiopaeans and the Law of One say that the earth absolutely is not going to split. There's not going to be a split. But what we're seeing, I believe, is the division now, from what Laura is speculating, between regular people and the people who are being turned into Nephilim. And that's just a speculation. That's just a hypothesis. It's just an opinion. It's not fact, but I just thought this was really, really, really interesting. So anyway, guys, let's get back to it.
All right. So, Laura, using same energy to what? Pass through space-time. Laura, does this mean that without this comet cluster, they cannot pass through space-time? Answer, no. Slower. Message follows here. Quiet for one moment, please. From now on, when word follows in quotes, we will designate followers. Mark, then word, then mark. Now slower. We installed quote marks on the board after this. From this point, when words in the Cassiopaean responses are in quotes, it's because they have so designated. So so again, this is kind of, what the Cassiopaeans, because again, this is the beginning, they're saying, basically the Cassiopaeans are trying to answer these questions as best as possible. They have some hurdles, right? The Cassiopaeans do. First of all, we're third density beings. Cassiopaeans, I believe, are sixth density. So there are things that they can't quite describe to us because we have no way of understanding it, right? Because we're not sixth density, we're third density. So no matter how smart you think you are, your brain, your actual brain, is only able to understand concepts in third density. This is not the density of knowing. And so there's some stuff outside of our realm of understanding. And so they have to use examples or be vague sometimes, the quotation marks. They don't want us to think that's the actual answer. They're just trying to explain it as best as possible for our little pea brains to understand. Also, another obstacle with the Cassiopaeans that, again, I want to bring up is that they are of the light. So they don't want to persuade us. If a question is asked and they feel like them answering that question will impact our own personal free will choices, they won't answer it. Or they'll be extremely vague. Because they will not interfere with our free will choices, okay? Question, Laura, so it is slower for them to come here without the wave. Where is the wave coming from? Answer, it follows a cluster. Laura, question, it follows the cluster. What does this wave consist of? Answer, a realm border. So in here she references the wave 9, so that goes back to, you have to read the wave books to understand kind of what they're talking about. That's why they call it the wave. So we're not going to get into that, but if you are interested in that, please get her books, Writing the Wave series. Does this round border wave follow the comet cluster in a permanent way? Answer, no. Question, Laura, is that round border loosely associated with the comet cluster each time it comes? Answer, no. Round border follows all-encompassing energy reality change. Round border will follow this cluster passage and has others, but not most. Question, Laura, is this round border a dimensional boundary? Answer, yes. So that makes sense to me. Does that make sense? A round border is a dimensional boundary. So there are certain boundaries. The Emerald Tablets speak of this as well. The Emerald Tablets talk about this too. We can't leapfrog out of third density, right? We can't like meditate ourselves into a higher dimension. That's why I prefer speaking about things in densities, because there's a lot of scam artists out there. There's a lot of con artists in the spiritual world who talk about being in fifth dense dimension while you're here on Earth. And that's not possible. That's not possible. That's not how it works. You are in third density right now. That is where you are. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia right now. I am not in Alaska. I can sit here and pretend I'm in Alaska and get delusional about it, but I'm actually in Atlanta, Georgia. And that's where I'm supposed to be. And that's one thing I want to reiterate too. We have this ego that thinks there's a finish line. And we think that whoever gets to the finish line first is the winner. So that's why I think so many people lie and get all delusional about being more advanced or more enlightened, and I'm already in fifth dimension, and I'm an old soul, and you're not, blah, blah, blah. What are you talking about? Time is eternal. There's no end to this. You take the time, you can't leapfrog out of this. You got to go every step. And then sometimes you go back and repeat steps because time is eternal. There's no winner, there's no loser. There's no first place, second place, third place. So I think that's a really good thing to see here. Is this round border a dimensional boundary? Yes, there are boundaries for what we can do in third density. Even if you're a wanderer that came down from 6th density to take a 3rd density existence to try to help the planet polarize positive, you still agreed to come into a 3rd density existence. So you're still in 3rd density. You can't go back. You made that agreement. So that might be a really good thing here to help discern who in the spiritual world is telling you the truth and who isn't. You can't win in spirituality. There's no winning. There's no losing. There's just choices to be made and karmic lives to be played out. That's it. No one's better than you. No one's getting there first. All right? All right, question, Laura. Okay, this round border, do dimensions? Answer, pulsating realms, fluctuating realms. Answer, or question, Laura, is our realm fluctuating or pulsating? No. Question, Laura, but this other realm does. No. Question, Laura, what fluctuates? Answer, resonance. Question, Laura, whatever is in that realm fluctuates? Answer, no, your planet fluctuates between realms. Laura, how does this fluctuation occur? Answer, about every 309,000 years. Let me just make sure I'm not missing any notes here. Okay. All right. Question, Laura. In other words, we can expect to be in 4th density for question, Laura. In other words, we can expect to be in 4th density for about 300,000 years. Answer, yes. Question, Laura. Does this mean that the Edonic state existed for about 300,000 years before the fall? Answer, yes. Question, Laura. Now you say these Nephilims are coming, and there are about 36 million of them, correct? Answer, yes. Laura, are they the enforcers of the Greys and Lizzies? Is that correct? Answer, yes. Question, Laura, well, let's sit back and watch the show. You're saying that the planet fluctuates. Answer, no. Realms do. Planets merely occupies realms. Question, Laura, what is the source in space-time over this realm? Answer, too complex. Question, Laura, what is the generative source? Answer, part of grand cycle. Question, Laura, is this the cycle understood by the Mayans? Answer, they understood partially. Question, Laura, their calendar extends to 2012. Is that accurate as to the time of the round border change? Answer, close. Still indefinite as you measure time. Lizzies are hoping to rule you in 4th density, closer to 18 years. And this has changed. This has absolutely changed. So we spoke about this in the last one, and I've said this over and over and over again. I'm like a broken record. So according to the law of one, so every living thing from plant to animal to human has a consciousness. So Earth itself has been in 3rd density, as are its inhabitants, except for animals or 2nd density, plants are 1st density. Now, most of the time when a human graduates, they call it harvesting, which I think sounds a little bit like a Stephen King novel, but nonetheless, when you graduate, when you move up in consciousness, you leave your body, so you experience earthly death, and then you move into your next existence, which is in a higher density. But the Earth also has a time where it gets harvested, or the planet. For us, it's Earth. We are in this really weird timeline on Earth right now. That's why nobody on Earth is a new soul. We're all old souls because of what's happening right now. Only old souls can handle this. Where Earth is, the probability is that Earth is going to go 4th density positive. Now, so all these people saying the Earth is going to split, that's not true. That's not going to happen. That doesn't happen. Things don't split. They go on a path. Okay? So now, I talked about this last episode, but I'll reiterate it again. Earth, the probability of Earth is that it's going to be harvested 4th density positive, as well as the occupants of the Earth that are ready to be harvested into 4th density, going to go positive. But we also have a dual harvesting going on here. So we've also got souls on this Earth who are trying to harvest 4th density negative. We call them Luciferians or Illumashmati. Okay? They are making choices to go the negative path. We're making choices to go the positive path. Now, here's something interesting, which is why you can't rest in your laurels. For the negative path, they cannot create anything. That's just science. Only thing that can create is light. So if you're the light, you can create, you can be an innovator, but if you're of the darkness, you can't. So you have to take from the light and manipulate it or invert it or try to mimic it. With that being said, that's why they do the rituals that they do with these people and animals, is because they cannot create life. And so they have to take from life. All right? What is happening right now on planet Earth? And that is why people who tell you that the bad guys have capitulated is not true. The negatives don't capitulate. That's not in their moral compass. They're service to self. They will never capitulate because that's service to others. They want to go negative. And what their plan is to pull Earth that's supposed to go positive into the negative. Okay? Why? Because if you can turn a being, whether that's a human or a planet, that's on the positive trajectory, if you can turn it negative, that's more power for you as a negative. That's why the darkness has gambled so much to try to pull us negative, is because if they succeed, then they become super powerful in that realm. And that is why there's so much controlled opposition in the truther or disclosure side. Like all these people saying, oh, sit back, it's fine, the white hats are in charge. That is propaganda from the negative side, so that you don't do anything. So that Earth gets pulled negative. All right? So that's why he says Lizzie's hoping to rule you in fourth density. So we don't have an actual date. We can't say a date. I talked about this last time. There's no way we can give dates because it's waiting on us to do something. Yeah? Okay. I hope that makes sense. Question V. So this is another person. Is E her teenage son home in bed? Answer, yes and no. Question, he is at home but not in bed? Answer, yes. Was he out earlier? Yes. So guys, if you're mama's channel, you're going to get told on if you're doing something bad. Answer, or question V, is this the same individual as before? Answer, yes. E is going through many changes. Question V, is he asleep? No. Question V, should I call him? Answer, no. Question Laura, is the present arrangement better? They switch seats. No. Question Laura, better than before? Answer, yes. Question Laura, what is better? You and Frank switch places, so they're switching places. Why? Energy vortex. Question Laura, if the Nephilim are coming at 36 million strong as enforcers for the Lizzies, does the Confederation have a like amount for defense? Answer, we don't operate that way. Question, Laura, are we just going to have to fight them off for ourselves? Answer, think of the Wizard of Oz. It was inspired by us. This is interesting, guys. Super interesting because the Wizard of Oz is coming back into vogue with Wicked being turned into an actual movie from a Broadway play. Question, Laura, does the witch represent the Lizzies? Answer, yes. Question, Laura, is there something we have or can do? Answer, Glenda like us. Question, Laura, who is the wizard? Is that the beast or the U.S. government? Answer, close, the Illuminati. Question, Laura, are the monkeys the Nephilim? Answer, close enough. Question, Laura, if water destroyed the witch and the witch represents the Lizzies, can we destroy the Lizzies? Or how can we destroy the Lizzies? Answer, knowledge. Question, Laura, but there are only a few on the planet who have the knowledge. Am I correct? Answer, what do you mean? Against all, when time comes. Question, Laura, so the 36 million will be against all on the planet when the time comes. Answer, of course. Laura, and those who have the knowledge can dispense it to others. Answer, yes. That just gave me the chills, you guys. Like, that just gave me the chills because that's what we're doing right now. That is what we're doing right now. This was channeled in 1994. And here it is, 2025, and look what we're doing. We're dispensing the knowledge. Back in 1994, they literally thought the change, I've gathered that from some of the other readings, was like around the corner, like the next year. You know, like, which would have been great because it would have been great to have gone through the change into fourth density before I had to go to high school, but whatever. Thus it is, I'm 42 now, and we're still in third density. But now looking back on this, we can see how back then, as I'm saying, in the 90s, there was very few people, very minute amounts of people who knew about the law of one. of the billions of people on this earth, only a handful of people actually knew about the law of one. And now look what's happening. I'm not the only channel covering the law of one. There's many other channels who cover the law of one out there. We are out there talking about it. We are using media. As with the last reading I did, they were talking in 1994 about how there was going to be a media sensation of these teachings. And Laura and them were very confused, you could tell, because it was 1994. And so they had no idea about YouTube or Rumble or TikTok, or they had no idea that that's what was coming. Okay, so I find that just gave me chill bumps, you guys. So share this stuff. This is not about me. I'm telling you guys, there's no way I could even go through all of these channelings on my channel. And I love going through them with you because I love this stuff too. But share these with your friends and family. Share the Law of One books with your friends and family. That is how they're telling us that the only way. So this is what they're saying. The Nephilim are the goons. They're the goons of the bad guys. Whether that comes from being injected with the DNA, whatever that means, there's going to be about 36 million that are willing to go to WAR against us in support of the bad guys, okay? And they're asking, so the bad guys have this army. Do we have an army? And they said, no, that's not how we work. Well, so how do we defeat? They're like, how do we defeat them then? What does the water represent? Knowledge. Knowledge is power, and knowledge protects. Knowledge is power, and knowledge protects. Why does that knowledge protect us? Because what's the main rule? What is the main rule that everyone has to follow? Consent. Consent. Free will choice. So if you have the knowledge of this, that's why it's so important to me to share the Law of One teachings, because this is what makes everything make sense. Like the Law of One teachings and the Cassiopaeans are what helped me figure out who the bad truthers were. Because there's certain rules of war that happen within these spiritual realms. So the more people understand polarizing negative, polarizing positive, the more that they can basically just say, nope, I don't consent. And there's the water you just dunked on them. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Okay. All right. Question V, have you inspired other movies we could watch? Answer, we have, but different meanings and subjects. Question V, is Cocoon one of yours? Answer, no, Hollywood. Question, Laura, who are the original inhabitants of the city of Jericho? Answer, Aramaic. Question, Laura, there was a stone tower at one of the lower levels. What was it built for? Answer, energy disbursement, attempts to duplicate Tower of Babel and the Atlantean crystal towers. Question, Laura, who have carved the crystal skulls found in Central America? The Mayans. Now, before we get into this, I want to mention something about the Atlanteans that I did read in when I was trying to find a good readings for you guys. And something interesting in one of the previous readings is they talked about the interference of the Lizzies with our planet. And they asked us why. Like, we all basically have implants. We all basically are being monitored. Like, why do we have to, if we're not consenting to this, why do we have to deal with this? And they kept saying karma from Atlantis. So we know Atlantis, like when Atlantis fell, basically it's mirroring what happened, what we're going through now, except for then we went negative. And so we are having to pay that karma back. So that's why there are certain things that are happening to us or have been happening to us as earthlings that maybe we're not as earthlings consenting to, but it's the karmic payback for the fall of Atlantis. So I just wanted to say that quickly because they talked about the Tower of Babel, which basically the god that did not like the Tower of Babel were the lizard beings. Just so you guys know, a lot of the talk of the God of the Bible is lizard beings, which we can go back. They talk a lot about the Garden of Eden, all that kind of stuff. We can go back and do that reading if you guys want to. I opted to do this one instead because in the beginning, and Laura and I did kind of write an apology note in this actual printed copy because she was so programmed into the Christian faith that sometimes when you're reading these transcripts, it gets a little annoying because she'll ask a question. And this is back in the 90s, guys. She's not like this now. And she, like I said, she actually kind of wrote something about this, kind of apologizing. She'll ask a question about the Bible, and if it's not the answer she wants, then she tries to rearrange the question and ask it again to like get a different, to kind of confirmation bias, right? To kind of prove the Bible right, when basically the Bible ain't nothing but bullshit is basically what they're saying, meant to kind of like brainwash us. But yeah, they get into the fall of Eden. They get into the god of the Bible, the Abrahamic God being a Lizzie, that the Tower of Babel was destroyed by a Lizzie being, not by God, all that kind of stuff. So anyway, so let's go back to the Mayans. Who carved the crystal skulls found in Central America? The Mayans. What was the purpose of that skull? Study brain, long messages, follows pause. Now, skull was to learn about soul. Reflective remoleculization imaging. Greys do this with abductees. Laura, question, through what kind of instrument? Answer, energy focusing. Laura, what is behind their eyes? Answer, camera-like system. Question, Laura, is that system also able to send signals? Answer, yes. Laura, at what spectrum level? Answer, through paralysis. Laura, do they implant thoughts with their eyes also? Answer, they can. What do they do with implants? Monitor. Question, Laura, do they monitor our thoughts? Yes. Question, Laura, do they monitor what we see? Yes. Question, Laura, hear and feel? Yes. Question, Laura, do the implants just monitor? Answer, and control. Question, Laura, do all of us have implants? Answer, yes. Question, Laura, are we under the control of the Greys? Answer, an attempt. Question, V, how many times have I been abducted? 55. Question, Laura, for Laura, 12. A, none. Question, J, yes. I think these are their children, so they're not giving their names. Answer, maybe tried A. Question, Laura, what stopped it? Answer, U. So the mother stopped it. All right, and I just want to pause a bit. All right, I did miss something with the Wizard of Oz, you guys, that she has so when they go back and they talk about, let's see here, where is it? When she asks, are the monkeys the Nephilim? And they say close enough. So I have a little note here. She said, I had forgotten the soldiers in the Wizard of Oz. The Winky guards are the Wicked Witch of the West, foot soldiers from the Wizard of Oz. After the witch died, the Winkies redeemed themselves and thanked Dorothy for unaliving her. This strongly implies that they were merely slaves to the witch and did her evil bidding because they had no choice and feared her wrath. I think that a study of the right-wing authoritarian personality as identified by psychologist Bob Altermeyer goes a long way towards explaining the behavior of the police and other enforcement organizations in this way. So she goes on to another side note here. We're going to go back to the 36 million will be against all the planet at the time. And they say, of course. So let me go ahead and read her little footnote here too. This little exchange implies an interesting proposition that the global population will at some point turn against the enforcers in mass, and that this is related in some way to the arrival of the comets, following which the wave in the realm change will manifest. No, hasn't manifested yet, but we did wake up in mass, didn't we? Again, this was done way before what happened in 2020, right? We return to these topics numerous of times in further sessions to keep these ideas in mind. I've only come to them after observing the changes that have manifested in our world over the past 20 years and noting how correct the seas were in so many respects. Though much of it seems to have been metaphoric. As I like to say nowadays, who needs aliens when we have psychopaths? All right, so let's get back to this. So V, when was I last abducted? Answer, June. Question, V, was that when I was perceiving being attacked? Answer, yes. Question, V, when I called on the hand of God, did that help? Answer, no. And I know that too, because nothing drives me crazy when I get Christians in the comment section being like, oh, but if you just call in Jesus' name, it'll stop. Are you really that stupid? I mean, honestly, are you that dumb? You think those kids on those islands weren't calling out God's name? Are you that arrogant and that so unaware of other people and so unaware of yourself that you would think that would work? Let me tell you something, honey. If you think that would work, you've obviously never been spiritually attacked. Okay. Anyway. So Laura asked, who carved friezes, am I saying that right, in French caves as well as other cave paintings? Answer, people, Aryans, in caves because struggle to survive conflicts between many forces, including Lizzie's being dominated, excuse me. Let me see if we have, 28, okay. So, including Lizzie's being dominated. So she has a side note here. If lizard being domination includes cometary bombardment or climate stress on the planet, as the Cassiopaeans have indicated, then the answer is easy to understand. It's pretty certain now that it was not a hunting magic, as the earlier theory is proposed. All right. Question, Laura, why did the Egyptians draw sideways? Answer, Atlantean method handed down, simply artistic stylization. You guys know I've said for a long time into my missing books of the Bible research that the Egyptians were the remains of Atlantis. Question, Laura, and that includes all races. What about the passages in the pyramid? Why so old? Answer, used energy vortex for movement, floated, levitated, can still do this if you know how. In the pyramid, the passage created the energy by their placement and their relationship to other space solid configurations, and the passages sometimes change their structure atomically and still do. So we've got a footnote here. All right, she says, I've never found an Army Corps of Engineers study on the Great Pyramid. I've noticed that they do a lot less of studies about the areas that are prone to flood, and also some georadar studies, as mentioned in the previous note, that were carried out by French team, I believe. However, I did find a book by engineer Christopher Dunn that gives an interesting take on the use of the monument. All right, so she's just saying she's found some interesting stuff backing this. We know the pyramids were not graves. We know that by now. Question, Laura, what is the purpose of the sarcophagus in the king's chamber? Answer, energy storage. Question, Laura, was there ever anything in this object? Answer, yes. Laura, what? Answer, many things. Laura, question, so there was nothing permanent in it. You could put various things in it for various reasons. Answer, yes. Question, Laura, in our machinery, we generally have dials and tuners which can adjust the machine to do a specific job or deliver a particular amount of flow of energy. Was that the equivalent of dials and tuning devices in the pyramid? Answer, thoughts. Laura, was it the thoughts of a person in there or for a specific individual whose job it was to do the thinking? Answer, both on occasion. Laura, could just anybody go into the pyramid, get into the sarcophagus, and have something done as they specified, or was it the culmination of some other long process? Answer, all. Question, Laura, when you say that the passages changed atomically, did you mean that they might actually become larger or smaller? Answer, yes, and change position as well. Question, Laura, is the theory of Petrie anywhere near correct?
Editing Bryce here again. I just wanted to let you guys know, if you were not familiar with the theory of Peachtree. So this is basically a pioneer of Egyptology, this guy Peachtree. He developed a dynamic race theory that suggested that the Egyptian civilization arose from an invading Mesopotamian ruling elite, imposing their culture and founding the first dynasty. So that's the theory that they're going into. Basically, the evidence for the theory, Petrie based his theory on several pieces of evidence, including physical differences. He observed differences in the physical remains of the ruling class compared to the native Bendarian culture, burial styles and architecture. The burial styles and tomb architecture of the ruling class were unlike the native. Basically, he's saying what we're seeing in Egypt, Petrie was saying, is that Egypt is so vastly different from the surrounding cultures that obviously it came from somewhere else. He talks about foreign artifacts. The abundance of foreign artifacts, particularly those of Mesopotamian origins, suggested an external influence. Cultural evidence, Petrie pointed to the architectural styles, pottery styles, cylinder seals, and artwork depicting Mesopotamian boats, symbols, and figures as evidence of Mesopotamian influence. Now, so they're telling Laura to go refer back to another study. And again, this, when this was done, as always, now we're absolutely questioning where Egypt really is. Like, where is Egypt? We don't believe for one second that Egypt that's in Africa is the actual Egypt. And there's lots of evidence to support that. The number one supporting evidence is that the country known as Egypt today has the least amount of pyramids in the entire world. So there's other evidence too, like honey production, certain types of golds that they used in Egypt. These particular types of gold that is referenced in ancient Egypt can only be found in the southeastern part of the United States. So there's all this evidence that makes us believe that the geographical location of Egypt then is not the same now. So this kind of blows a lot of theories out of the water because we don't even know what to believe anymore. But I just wanted to let you guys know that. Of course, in 1994, they were thinking that the real Egypt is actually Egypt, and the seas are not going to come right out and tell us this stuff. If we ask, maybe they'll tell us, but they're not just going to come right out and tell us like we're incorrect about geography, because that would be imposing on our free will. So I just wanted to put that out, and all right, back to the show.
In 1967, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers did a study. Look it up. Question, Laura, was there ever any point in such a time as unicorns as described in legends? Answer, no. So there were never unicorns. Question, Atlantis beast was similar to unicorn, all died in cataclysm, looked similar to a horse, and some had a horn, but not all. Question, what is the origin of the Sanskrit language? Atlantis! I knew this. I figured this out on my own. Thank you very much. I figured this out through my own research, that Sanskrit was the original Atlantean language. Question, Laura, when the Aryans were brought here, were they brought through Atlantis? No. The Aryans were different from Atlanteans. Question, Laura, is there any language in existence today that descends from the Aryan language or that has remained more similar in development from Indo-Europeans? Yes, all Germanic. Question, Laura, is Celtic considered to be one of these? Answer, yes. Question, Laura, what is the origins of the Minoan civilization? Answer, Atlantean descendants. What was bull leaping? Question, or answer, a test, a sport, a religious rite. Question, Laura, when Thera blew, it seemed to have destroyed all the Minoan cities except for, I don't know if I'm saying this right, Knossos? Let me know. Thera was a result of close passage of Maldek. Knossos was not destroyed because of structures were fundamentally stronger and blast waves were perpendicular. Underground shelters saved a few of the people. Question, Laura, Knossos lasted for about 75 years after the events that destroyed most of the Minoan civilization. What were the events which brought about the final downfall of the Minoans? Meteor-borne parasites, meteor-destroyed city. The Mycenaeans built a city with about a 50-foot thick wall. Why was this wall built so if the only dangers were warriors armed with spears and arrows, protected against frequent cataclysmic events during that period? It worked. Much of the wall is still standing. Laura, now when you talk about the comet cluster, as you have on many occasions, the technical definition of a comet cluster is that of a chunk of ice. Is that the case when the comet is in clusters? Answer, and other substances, primarily iridium cores. Question, Laura, now you say there are 36 million Nephilim heading this way. Are they fourth density beings? Answer, no. They live in fourth density but are third density. They are as physical as you, behave like Gestapo. Gestapo was inspired by Nephilim through lizard beings' influence over Hitler. It was a practice run. So for all you guys that think Hitler was a good guy, all of these truthers that think Hitler was a good guy, no, he wasn't. No, he wasn't. Laura, and let me just, can I just say this? This is what really drives me crazy. We absolutely know that we've been lied to with our history, but when it comes to World War II, you guys, people have grandparents who survived that, who came back to tell the tales. Don't go gaslighting them. How dare you? That was less than 100 years ago. How dare you? Wake up, truthers. The truthers are the most asleep people I've ever met. Anyway, question, Laura, are the Nephilims going to be friendly towards us? Answer, no. Laura, now you said that the Nephilim were seated on a planet called Diankiar, as were human beings. When you said we were seated there, what did you mean? Answer, was proper environment for molecularization. Question, Laura, are you saying that the physical bodies on planet Earth, the various types of mankind, such as Neanderthal, Cro-Magnon, Astroloph, I don't know, you guys tell me how to pronounce that, were generated on the other planet and were brought here? Yes. We know that we were brought here. We didn't evolve, we were brought here. Question, Laura, I'm assuming that if the Nephilim are third density and they die like we do. Is that correct? Answer, yes. Laura, so we can pew pew them and they will die. Answer, correct, but wrong approach. Answer, Laura, what is the right approach? Answer, knowledge protects. Knowledge, but remember the main law is consent. Knowledge protects. Question, Laura, well, if a 15-foot tall guy comes to me and wants to knock me around, what knowledge is going to protect me? Answer, you will be in fourth density. Question, Laura, so before we get here, we will be in fourth density. Answer, crossing. Laura, all three of us? Yes, and many others. So he's saying there are many others already destined for fourth density. Question, Laura, so we're not going to have to deal with the Nephilim? Answer, not correct. Laura, does this mean that there will be 3 and 4 density beings on the planet at the same time, and that sometime we'll have to deal with these guys and some won't? Answer, but you will have to too. Like, no one's getting out of this shit, you guys. We all got to go through it. Question, Laura, I don't understand. Are these Nephilims coming here to transition to fourth density also? Answer, they already live there as third density beings. Demonstration, when you were abducted, you are third density, but you are taken into fourth density. Question, V. In June, I had a dream where I was taken up and there was a light beings and I was also a light being. I was trying on different clothes. I was led into a room where I was told I could write there, and then I was told it was time to leave. I had shoes on that had writing on them, Earth Star. Was this an abduction? Answer, yes. Question, V. Talk about illusions. I thought that was a good thing. Was it a bad thing? Answer, subjective. Question, V. Who were the abductors? Answer, gray. So they're saying good aliens are never going to abduct us. If you get abducted, it's for the bad. But your experience is subjective, okay? Question B, when I woke up, I felt so tall and electric. I thought it had been the best thing. That was my abduction in June. Answer, yes. Question, Laura, we would like to know about this plane crash. Okay, so this was back in 1994. But we'll read through it. I don't know what plane crash they're talking about because, again, this was 1994. There were no bodies. Is that the case? Answer, no. Question, where were the bodies scattered? Question, what was called the plane crash, just like U.S. Air? Was lizard attack? Will be covered up. Question, Laura, the night before the USA crash, some of us had headaches and woke up drained. Answer, precognition and soul transfer of energy. End of session. Okay, so I thought that was really, really interesting about the Nephilim. And also, I have to say, I'm really grateful that I had all these years of yoga experience before we came to this transition in our world, because that is what really taught me. You can't get out of shit. You got to go through it. You can't leapfrog. If you leapfrog, you're not actually getting through it. And I think that's the whole point in some of these readings, especially in the beginning, is they're saying you can't escape this. You cannot escape this. You're here. You're going to have to deal with it. But don't stress too much, because when the time comes, like he's saying, you're going to be in fourth density, you'll know how to deal with it. And also with the Nephilim, again, as she wrote after years in the notes at the bottom, after years of doing this and going back and reflecting on it, she opened to the possibility that the Nephilim are going to come through our own bodies through DNA modification. And again, this was long before 2020, so we see this stuff. Is that what the Nephilim are? People that are already on the planet, and that energy of the Nephilim is just being transferred through DNA modification. I don't know, that's just a theory. Love to hear your theories down in the comment section below, and just be careful about the words you use. Please be careful about the words you use. And yeah, you guys, I can't wait to keep doing this with you guys. I've got so much more to go through. I find these so fascinating, and so I hope you two get the books, the Wave series, and also start following the forum. And I will talk to you soon. Bye, guys.